Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Prior to the Snap. Credit to Armani Gracia for naming the show. Love it. That's awesome. Today on the show, we got my co-host here every week with me, Jay Gibbs. We have the first special guest, Joey Five, Jay Ned, Joseph Matthew Chico, dude, everything. Very excited to start this show out. We do it every week for all the football seasons, all the playoffs, obviously. And really looking forward to it. If you want to be a guest on it, hit me up. We'll see if we can find a week for you to hop in. We're going to kick it off with some fantasy football news with Jay Glaze and Gibbs.
Thanks for starting this up, Peck. I'm really happy to be here. Fantasy news. Well, the first news is, thank goodness it's football season. Week 1, always good. Best time of the year. And the best part of football season is, of course, fantasy football. As far as news, it's a little hard with week 1 as far as your studs and duds and who's going to pan out, who won't. Week 1 is where the baseline kind of gets set. But I do have some injury news. If you have been living under a rock for the last couple of days, the biggest name that is not going to be playing outside of Tom Brady still is a Patriot, though. Tight end Rob Gronkowski has been ruled out for Sunday's matchup here against Arizona, which has some pretty big implications across fantasy. He's the obvious number 1 tight end in the entire NFL. So when he goes down, if you're looking for a late pickup, somebody to come through, if he's still available in your league, somebody who was just upgraded, was a full participant in practice, their last walkthrough, Zach Miller in Chicago. Definitely going to be a security blanket. Adam Gase last year in Chicago was very big on giving Jay Cutler the confidence to throw across the middle to the tight end. Definitely cut down on his mistakes as a quarterback. And Miller's definitely a solid option. Another option is going to be Green Bay's Jared Cook. Went undrafted in a lot of formats. Underwhelmed a lot in his previous teams. But I think after watching practice and preseason snaps where he was a very dominant part of the offense, Green Bay has been looking for that across the middle, free up space for your wideouts to run deep threat ever since Jermichael Finley got injured and his career was cut short. So definitely Jared Cook going up against a very surprising and good Jacksonville team. They do have some questions at linebacker, though, so definitely could be a matchup to exploit. In other news, Golden Tate was listed as questionable. He is expected to play, however. He has not missed a game since 2012. So unless he is listed as doubtful or out, always assume that he is going to be starting. Andrew Luck was a question mark going into the weekend. However, he is expected to get the start against the Lions. And am I missing any here? Another big name is Jamal Charles. I do apologize. Jamal Charles will not be playing on Sunday as well. Neither will, from what I'm seeing, is Sharkhandrick West. So it looks like Spencer Ware is going to be getting the start. But those are the big names as far as fantasy goes. Although you have your obvious, Tony Romo's out, but it's not really surprising. I guess it's only surprising it happened in week 1 and not week 4.
All right, Jay, do you have some starters for us?
Yeah, actually, I was going through on Sports Talk's little fantasy thread we had. It looks like we had 1 or 2 fantasy threads going. Saw a couple of who should I start, who should I sit matchups here. Big one that I am looking forward to, especially in all formats, but especially PPR formats. A must start is going to be Brandon Cooks in New Orleans. The Saints seem to underwhelm as a team the last couple years here, but the one thing that they do is put up fantasy points in bunches. Drew Brees just got his contract extension renegotiated. I don't know how he keeps doing that. He's like 37, 38 years old, and he's still just renegotiating for more and more money. But once he's solidified there, he loves, Coach Payton. He loves New Orleans, and they're finally giving him some younger receivers. It's no longer the Marcus Colston show out there. Brandon Cooks has definitely stepped into his own. Another matchup, and it might sound weird, and I know Justin will like it. Somebody I'm starting in PPR formats is going to be Jarvis Landry. Taking a look through, I know they are playing Seattle in Seattle, but what that means is Miami is going to be down. They're going to be throwing the ball. Devontae Parker was injured throughout the week. I know he's questionable as well. But what that means is Jarvis Landry is going to get a healthy dose of looks today. And again, Adam Gase, he was in Chicago. Now he is in Miami working with Tannehill. I do think you're going to see a very big uptick for Tannehill as far as production, cut down on mistakes, and that is going to mean a very big season possibly for Jarvis Landry. I'm definitely starting him on PPR formats. Did you want me to go into who I'm not starting?
Yeah, let's go into the setup.
All right, so sit-em-wise, another trap game. Actually, I'm starting Jarvis Landry over Jeremy Maclin. And I know what you're thinking. He's the only receiver out there. However, and I believe they're playing San Diego. San Diego's matchup, again, a team that underwhelms, but certain positions are very strong. And they actually have the 5th-ranked defense against wide receivers this year, or from last season. So coming in, they actually do fairly well at stopping opposing receivers. It's just they can't stop them all day, and they can't stop the run to save their life. So what you're going to see is Kansas City go up on San Diego early, and they're going to be running the ball all day. Kansas City wide receivers don't really catch touchdowns. That is why I'm definitely sitting Jeremy Maclin in all formats. Another one to keep an eye on that I'm sitting, and again, this is probably going to cause some controversy maybe. I'll hear it from my NFC North foes, but I'm sitting Stephon Diggs against Tennessee. Newly vamped up secondary, and a huge question mark in Sean Hill starting over the robbery that was the Sam Bradford trade. Bradford is going to be taking an extra week to learn the offense. I don't know how much he's going to learn watching Sean Hill give the ball to Adrian Peterson 35 times today, but I guess that is the offense that you'll be seeing in Minnesota. So those are my 2 big sit-ems. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to keep hopping them in the thread. After this, I am going to be opening up another thread here to go over some last-minute start-em sit-ems, and if any questions on the late games tonight, Monday night, things like that. Looking forward to getting all your questions. If you do have any questions during the week that you'd like me to answer during this segment going forward, feel free to send me a message on Facebook, put something on Sports Talk. I'll definitely take down your answers, do some research, and get back to you for the next week's show.
All right, and after the fantasy news, we're going to kick over to J-Ned, and he's going to break down 5 games for us. When you starting with, John?
We can start with the Giants and Dallas. Sure. Obviously, Prescott is a big storyline here. With Romo being hurt, many Cowboys fans eager to declare him the heir apparent. We'll see. I would be surprised if they really ask him to do a lot. I imagine they're going to run the ball, but they're probably going to have him throw if the Giants stack the box. On the Giants side, I'm really interested to see what Victor Cruz does. There's been a habit of Giants receivers post-Amani Toomer and pre-Odell Beckham having 1 or 2 really good years and then disappearing. Steve Smith was a Super Bowl hero, got hurt, vanished. Hakeem Nicks, Super Bowl hero, gets hurt, disappears. Odell started his career that way, but obviously is doing fine. Victor Cruz was a guy that looked like he was going to be our number 1 for a long time. Now he's going to be downgraded to the slot with Sterling Shepard starting on the outside. He's looked pretty okay in preseason, but not nearly the same player he was a year and a half ago when he sustained that injury. So he's a guy that could be playing for a roster spot next year, as crazy as that may seem for a guy who posted back-to-back, 1,300 yards seasons. Other than that, Spagnuolo's seat should be pretty hot for the Giants. You got to wonder how the Cowboys are going to fare. This might set the tone for the rest of the year. Obviously, Romo's going to be out until at least week 10, if not further. You never know with broken vertebrae. So it's obviously every week 1 matchup is huge. But for Dallas, having a rookie at quarterback and a rookie at running back, Ezekiel Elliott's going to have to set the tone and try to allow Dak Prescott to be a game manager if they're going to have any success. I don't see Prescott coming out, throwing 300 yards, pulling a Cam Newton, and trying to will his team to victory. So, obviously injuries, Tony Romo. That's about it for that matchup. I think the Giants are going to win. I hope the Giants win. If you can't beat Dallas with 2 rookies in the backfield, it's going to be a long season.
All right, and then
next
moving
up-
on from the game of the week that we had there, the Giants and Dallas. What do you have next up?
Let's do. This kind of went off on me. We'll stay in the NFC East. Cleveland and Philadelphia. Carson Wentz is going to get the start, apparently over his cracked rib or broken rib injury, whichever one you want to believe. Ryan Matthews is somehow not injured. Jordan Matthews is apparently going to play week 1, which was in question earlier in the preseason. Big storyline, obviously Carson Wentz. You want to see what the kid does. But I'm really interested in seeing what the receivers not named Jordan Matthews do for this Eagle squad. They obviously traded for Dorial Green Beckham. It wasn't like a robbery. They didn't give up a whole lot for him. For a kid who last year was talked about being this physical specimen that just needed to mature a little bit. We'll see. The Eagles have a notorious case of the dropsies outside of Jordan Matthews. If Wentz is going to be successful, not just in this game, but the entire season, he's going to need receivers to catch the ball when he puts it in the breadbasket. For the Browns, they felt good enough about RG3 to trade away the number 1 pick. So I'm assuming this is Hugh Jackson's guy. Josh Gordon's not going to be there for the first 4 games. Is RG3 going to find the connection with his fellow Baylor player, not named Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman? Yeah, I'm interested in Duke Johnson. I really thought this kid was going to be a monster coming out of Miami. And he can't really beat out Isaiah Crowell, who just keeps putting his foot in his mouth and has given the organization every opportunity to cut him. And he's still there. Still going to be a split backfield. RG3 has a habit of staring down one receiver for too long. Even with the Eagles' question marks in the secondary, at this level, you can't be staring down one receiver. Unless, you have Josh Gordon, and then it's a different story. That's going to be defensively, who cares about defense in this matchup when you've got a rookie quarterback, and can RG3 look anything like his rookie season? when people were talking about him being a better draft pick than Andrew Luck. It'll be interesting. No major injuries outside of the Josh Gordon suspension. But yeah, that's about it. It's really about the quarterbacks because both organizations are probably more hopeful now than they have been the last few years, especially in the Browns' case. They thought Derek Anderson was their guy, and not so much. For the Eagles, they had a good run with Donovan McNabb, a couple of seasons with Michael Vick, 1 year with Nick Foles, where every Eagles fan swore up and down he was the next MVP. So it's kind of a changing of the guard for both teams. The Browns changed their guard a lot, but for the Eagles, they're hoping Wentz can be the guy.
All right, and you mentioned, the quarterbacks. They feel like they finally have their quarterbacks. Let's have you go down to Washington, where RG3, couldn't cut it, and they're very confident in Kirk Cousins. Some fans more than others, but do you think that's finally their guy? What do you think about that game?
I think I hate to say fluke, but last year with the NFC East, obviously we're almost hurt again, and that was kind of the Cowboys' division to win. I don't see Washington really being worthy of a playoff spot, and I don't think they're gonna get back there. Kirk Cousins, I mean, he's got more football talent than I do, but I don't know if he's the guy. I mean, he was a highly touted backup. He was in the same draft class as RG3, I believe, and he wasn't the guy. And then there was a falling out between RG3 and the organization, and now he's the guy. And Jordan Reed blows up and makes him look like a great quarterback. I don't know, because it's also unfair to say because Deshaun Jackson was hurt all year last year. And when he finally came back, he wasn't really the same guy. I say no. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be the guy that at least gets into further than a playoff berth. Kind of surprised Alfred Morris walked to go be a third stringer on Dallas. Matt Jones is going to start for them, I believe, even over that kid who had a good preseason. I think the biggest storyline for them is how many touchdowns can Jordan Reed score me for my fantasy team. That's what I'm interested in looking at. There's a couple big ones for them. Josh Norman. Whenever a team lets go of a guy who was a major player for them, like Josh Norman was for the Panthers, you're talking about a shutdown corner. The guy who got in Odell's head and made him freak out. They let him walk. They had a franchise tag on him. Then they pulled it. Ron Rivera is a smart guy. I always said he was one of the best defensive-minded coaches in football since his days when the Bears had no business being in that Super Bowl against the Colts. And they got there thanks to their special teams and their defense. Rex Grossman was their quarterback. Think about that for a second. He hasn't looked that great. And that could just be he's never looked great in preseason. Even last year, he didn't look great in preseason. It'll be interesting to see if he's worth that money. He's not really exceptionally fast. He's a physical receiver that likes to play press coverage. Pretty decent in zone. But is he going to be the guy that really turned that team around? I'm not so sold. I'm not really sold on Washington as a whole, but it could just be because I'm biased and they're a division rival. They're still better than the Eagles. Don't tell Kurt that I said that. But and obviously they're going up against Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh's storyline is like, how many years in a row is Le'Veon Bell not going to play the first 4 games? Is D'Angelo Williams Yeah, until he gets a year suspension for not being able to stay off pot. Him and Josh Gordon can get a summer house together, just hang out. D'Angelo Williams, I was kind of surprised that he went to Pittsburgh in the first place. Kind of looked washed up his last year in Carolina, but this has been good for him. Obviously, he's staying in the league, putting up stats. Even when Le'Veon Bell came back, he was a decent part of the offense. Obviously not 100 yards a game or anything, but he was getting carries. I think the biggest storyline for that game, obviously Martavius Bryant, talented wide receiver, suspended for the entire year, which is a shame. Marcus Wheaton did not practice. They're talking about him being held out of that game. So now it's next guy up. Is it going to be Darius Hayward-Pay? I think if they double cover Antonio Brown, or even if Josh, that's the storyline, Josh Norman versus Antonio Brown. If Josh Norman is the same guy he was last year, you can't stop Antonio Brown, but maybe he can slow him down. If Antonio Brown finishes for like 80 yards and a touchdown, I would consider that a win for Josh Norman, as crazy as that sounds, because he's going to throw to the people. Heath Miller's not there. Ladarius Green is just hurt or suspended. Suspended, I think, for the first 4 games also. So next man up. Pittsburgh always has a way of having these receivers that are 4th, 5th string guys look pretty damn good. And then they go somewhere else and they don't look that great. You know what I mean? Kind of like how the Patriots do. They kind of remind me of the Patriots in that same way, where, Brandon LaFell goes to Cincinnati. Is he really going to be able to replace Marvin Jones or Mohamed Sanu? Same kind of thought here with the Steelers. I don't know how good Marcus Wheaton would be in a different system, in a different organization. But with Martavius Bryant being out, this is huge for him. And he's going to miss this game. So I expect Pittsburgh to run the ball. Big Ben's going to throw it, obviously. But they're going to have to establish the trenches because it's going to be Antonio Brown, and that's about it for Big Ben to throw to. Also, the Steelers' defense, not as vaunted. The past couple of years, I believe they, when Troy Polamalu retired, they had a safety that they drafted from Rutgers. I don't want to butcher his name. I think his name's Shamarko. And this kid looked like, this guy's going to be pretty good. And he hasn't been able to win that starting job against scrubs. I mean, the secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I've never remembered being this meh, this average. So that's going to be key for them to continue their AFC North dominance. Every year they're still in the playoffs, and their offense is ridiculous. When everybody's healthy, that offense is just ridiculous. But in a year where Le'Veon Bell is suspended for the first 4 games, and if he messes up again, it's going to be a way longer suspension. Martavius Bryant has gone for the entire year. They need that defense to step up this year, with the Bengals being the regular season warriors that they are. And the Ravens, people count them out like this isn't a team that won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. It's not the same team, obviously. But Steve Smith Sr. came back, and they weren't looking bad when he was healthy last year. And then he got hurt, and that their season went to shit. So for them to stay in that tough division, Washington has an easier road, obviously, especially with Romo getting hurt. I mean, are the Giants for real? That's a question mark. Are the Eagles, is Wentz for real? That's a question mark. Pittsburgh needs to jump out on these games. The Redskins, if they're legit, they're going to have time to make up losses with their interdivisional play. The Steelers will not get that kind of luck, especially if the Browns end up turning it around this year, which I don't know if it's going to happen in 1 year, but Pittsburgh needs this game. As crazy as it sounds for week 1, Pittsburgh needs this game to stay in their division, stay ahead of everybody.
All right, and one of the teams we're trying to stay ahead of in that AFC North is the Cincinnati Bengals facing the New York Jets.
Yeah, I know that Jay did the fantasy news already, but I would not play Jeremy Hill. That's the first thing I'm going to say just right off the bat. The Jets kind of stayed the same during the offseason. And this is a team that obviously was good enough to win double-digit wins last year, even though they missed out on a playoff berth. They didn't really do anything too flashy besides re-signing their quarterback pretty late into the preseason. Somehow didn't get off from Denver. I know he's a journeyman quarterback who isn't the guy you think of when you think of elite quarterbacks, but he did throw 34 touchdowns last year and had his best statistical season. So the big storyline is Brandon Marshall going to owe somebody on a bet. I know it's only week one, but that receiving core is still intact, which means Fitzpatrick should still have a good game. The defense, for the most part, is intact. They lost some help on their defensive line. And Rex Ryan's boy at corner, I believe, got cut. D. Milner, that they drafted a couple years ago in the first round. But largely the same. Bowles has done a better job with this team than I could have imagined last year. If you would have told me last year they were going to win double digits at the beginning of the season, probably would have laughed in your face. I didn't see the turnaround happening that quickly, which kind of gives me hope for Hugh Jackson in Cleveland, because the last time I doubted a quick turnaround, it happened. For the Jets, it's really going to be about for them maintaining the status quo. Fitzpatrick got into camp late, got into the preseason late, but he's had a year with these same guys. It's not really like there's a new face that he's throwing the ball to, except for Matt Forte, which only helps him coming out of the backfield, one of the best receiving backs in the game. It's going to be about, can he replicate that success? Because he had some years in Buffalo where he looked like he was going to be the real deal, and then interceptions got the best of him. So for Fitzpatrick, he kind of has that gunslinger mentality. Reminds me of a poor man's Brett Favre, like a really poor man's Brett Favre. I'm not trying to draw that comparison, except for the fact that they both throw into double coverage. Maybe like a regular man's Jay Cutler, just who has a better touchdown interception ratio than Jay. So for Fitz, not taking a regression, not taking a step back, the Jets need to see that from him, because people forget that Geno Smith is still knocking on the door. This guy was the starting quarterback slated for last year before he got his jaw broke over a bet. It's not like Fitzpatrick, even though he just signed this deal, is cemented in his spot, where if he ends up looking like crap for the first couple of games, that his job's not going to get taken away. So for me, that storyline is him maintaining the status quo with that great group of receivers that he's got in Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. And even Jason Morrow. I mean, Jason Morrow, it's another interesting thing. Is he going to turn the corner this year? This is a kid that they drafted pretty high at tight end. He drew some comparisons coming out of college to Kellen Winslow, junior, not senior, big receiving tight end. He's had a poor luck, getting hurt, but also hasn't really been a featured part of the offense. This could be his year to make his mark in the red zone. Obviously, big body guys get more targets in the red zone. For Cincinnati, they're going to have a new offensive coordinator, obviously. Hugh Jackson went to the Browns. Will Andy Dalton take a step back? Because under Hugh Jackson, Andy Dalton looked like knocking on elite's door. That might be blasphemous to some people, but he was, he had the stats to prove it before he got hurt the last couple games of the season. And then A.J. McCarron came out and looked like, not too shabby. I don't think Dalton's in any position, to be losing his job to A.J. McCarron, but A.J. McCarron might make good trade bait later down the road in the season. Kind of reminds me of Matt Schwab backing up Michael Vick, having a decent secondary guy who's looked good or even, some guy named Matt Flynn. I don't know if you guys have heard of that guy over in Green Bay. That guy got a monster contract based off of what he did in replacement for Aaron Rodgers. But Dalton's going to have a tougher time on top of having a new offensive coordinator. Eifert has been officially ruled out. I feel like he's been officially ruled out since week 2 of the preseason. They said they were going to take it slow with him. He's a young kid. They don't want to damage him long-term over a couple of games. I don't even know if he's going to be back week 2. So his star tight end's going to be out. He's missing Marvin Jones, who was his number 2 receiver. And when he got hurt, Mohamed Sanu, who was his slot receiver that stepped up to number 2 receiver, he's missing now both of those guys. And who did he get in return? Brandon LaFell, who some people might remember a couple of years ago had like 700 some odd yards and looked pretty decent for a young kid. And then he looked very, very mediocre last year, barely topping 400 yards, I believe. You don't want to see a guy like that take a step back, but Cincinnati had to get somebody. And LaFell's in a good situation when I feel like when Eifert's out there. If Eifert's out there, now you're talking about the third target guy, I'm okay with that with LaFell. He's going to be the number 2 guy. A.J. Green might be getting double covered. It's going to be rough for them until they get all hands on deck on their offensive line, on their offense. Eifert's a huge injury. I like Cincinnati in the regular season because it's hard not to. Every year they do so well in the regular season, and then they make stupid people like me think, oh, this might be the year they win a playoff game, and then they don't because that's Marvin Jones. Or I mean, what's the name of their head coach that I just completely blanked on? Marvin Lewis. See, it's the first name, Marvin. Marvin Lewis can't win a playoff game. I don't know what it is. If I have $100 and they make it to the playoffs, I'm not betting on the Bengals. So I mean, that's the big thing is going to be for Dalton. His receiving targets are not going to be up to snuff for what he's been blessed with the last couple of years. And for Fitzpatrick, he can't take a step back. If he takes a step back, he might not have that job. And also, is Forte really going to be a feature back for the whole season? I feel like he was criminally underused in Chicago, kind of wasted his prime years. He should have some tread on the tires, seeing as how they insisted on throwing it on first down, which I'm sure Jay was happy about. I still think Forte's got it. I don't know for how long, but he might be that piece that gets the Jets into the playoffs as opposed to a double-digit win team kind of looking in.
All right, then the last game that you were doing, Joe, is the Los Angeles Rams against the San Francisco 49ers.
This game is the most exciting game of the week. You're talking about the premier quarterbacks, premier teams. Obviously, just kidding. The best part about this is that the Rams got out of St. Louis because now St. Louis fans won't have to watch this product on the field anymore. Obviously, rookie quarterback, Jared Goff, they traded up to get the kid. What does he have? I'll tell you what he doesn't have. A big receiver. My size Tavon Austin, who is fast, is going to be the number one. They paid the guy in the offseason. Normally you pay a guy when he's proven. I mean, for a Ted Ginn Jr. type, they gave that kid a lot of money. It's going to be important for him to establish a repertoire with Tavon Austin. It's going to be made easier, obviously, with Todd Gurley. But when they stack the box, what is he going to do? Kenny Britt still has a football career. For those that haven't been paying attention, he should be slated to be the number 2 guy. You might remember him as the guy that went directly after Hakeem Nicks in that NFL draft. Both of them have just looked great in their middling of their careers. Hakeem Nicks is probably already retired. And here's Kenny Britt wasting away in Los Angeles. So the big thing is going to be Goff. Obviously, LA's defense is going to be there. They might have one of the best defensive lines in football, if not the best defensive line of football. And this team every year comes out, punches people in the mouth, and then fades away. Every year. They beat Seattle in Seattle, and then they lose to whoever, just to a team that they should beat. They kind of play to the level of their competition. And Jeff Fisher's going to have to break that. His seat should be so hot right now. And I don't know if it is because Kroenke's in love with him. They're in love with him. But how many times can you go 7-9 or 8-8 and still have a job? That's the question we're going to find out. All the eggs are in the basket. They traded up to get Goff. So you know your defense is solid. Is this kid going to be the kid that gets you to the playoffs? That's going to be the big thing. Oh, go ahead.
I actually believe that Case Keenum is going to be starting in LA this week.
He's going to be starting?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you know
believe
what? I did read about that. I completely forgot.
they wanted Goff to develop a little bit.
They said he's
But
criminally
I do agree
underdeveloped.
that I do believe that you're right, though, that Goff is going to be the key to leading them to the playoffs if they're going to make a push. I think Goff will be starting by week 4 or 5.
I like Case Keenum when he came out of Houston. Me randomly starting him in fantasy when I needed a quarterback has changed my opinion of him drastically. Case Keenum is garbage. He's garbage. He's not even a gatekeeper. He's like the road in front of the gate. If Goff can't beat out Case Keenum, he's already a bust. That's I'm just saying that right now. They said that he is way underdeveloped for a kid that they spent a first overall pick on. And maybe it's not fair because recently we've had the Jameis Winstons, the Andrew Lucks, the Cam Newtons have impressed. And maybe we forget that there used to be people like Eli Manning throwing for 108 yards in a loss and the NY media declaring him a hero. So, I mean, if he needs time to grow, I just can't believe that he can't beat out Case Keenum. Case Keenum is nothing special. Watch. Case Keenum goes off 5 touchdowns. Start him in your leagues, everybody. I said he was going to do horrible.
Actually, if you're playing in like a 20-man or 25-man fantasy football league and you somehow needed Case Keenum, he actually would be a bad start today against San Francisco.
Yeah, it's not exactly like San Francisco has anything on defense to worry you too much, especially with Chip Kelly's scheme, which is going to be high tempo, which means that defense is going to be out there a lot. For San Francisco, Blaine Gabbert starting, known for being amazing in Jacksonville. I'm really interested in San Francisco. Can Carlos Hyde stay healthy for more than 6 games in a row? This is going to be a big week for Carlos Hyde. He has looked like a premier running back when he's healthy. He just hasn't been healthy. I'm also interested in seeing Torrey Smith, not so far removed from being the number 1 guy in Baltimore. And now in preseason, he was targeted like 4 times, and he's supposed to be the number 1 receiver. I don't know exactly what Chip Kelly's plan was. I jumped on Torrey Smith in my fantasy league because I thought he's going to be a receiver in Chip Kelly's offense. He's obviously got talent, just underused. And then in the preseason, they continue to underuse him.
All right, and then I'm going to do 5 games myself. J-Mad, excellent, thank you. Nice breakdowns for each team. You really looked into literally each and every team, pretty in depth.
Forever.
Showing off your showing off your knowledge.
Showing off my rambling.
All right, first game I'm going to do is Buffalo. The Bills are facing the Baltimore Ravens. Biggest thing for Baltimore is they're healthy. Finally, they were so decimated last year. They're thrilled to see Flacco come back. It was a train wreck watching the quarterbacks last year. They managed to put up okay numbers, but that was because they were down in so many games. A lot of the games they did keep close, and when you don't have a quarterback and you keep a game close, that's pretty amazing, in my opinion. The one injury they do have to report is Elvis Dumervil will be out today. For the Bills, they have a strong run game. And even with Carlos Williams gone, released, he would have been suspended anyway. But even with him gone, they have a very strong run game. So losing Dumervil for this game, that hurts Baltimore. That's bad for them. I'm looking for Buffalo to eat up a lot of clock today and go out there and try to play defense, keep it close. And I think it comes down to a last-second drive. And if Baltimore can punch it in at the end of the game or not. Going on after that to San Diego and Kansas City. The big thing, Jamal Charles is out. Scary for anybody who drafted him in fantasy. You know, it's a big loss. Spencer Ware starting. Kendrick West is not playing. So it's going to be Spencer Ware all day. And even with Doug Peterson gone, Andy Reid does like to run the ball. It's just a matter of if this is the Randall game where he decides to throw the ball 75% of the time, or if that's going to be another game down the line. But that's always something that might happen with Andy Reid. So with everything lining up to see, Spencer Ware with 25 carries, 100 and some yards, still not so sure it's going to happen. He may have Alex Smith roll out a lot. He may do a few draws. I expect a big game for Jeremy Maclin. I think he'll have a good game. 8 touchdowns last year, and nobody really noticed. And you think there'd be a celebration and a party every time there's a touchdown thrown to a wide receiver in Kansas City. But it kind of went under the radar. Maclin had himself a very good year last year, over 1,000 yards. And on that wide receiver note, Keenan Allen, healthy. And he's going up against Marcus Peters, who had a great rookie year. So that's a matchup I'm very excited to watch. I want to see who gets the better end of that. Keenan Allen's got a chip on his shoulder. He's finally back. He's finally healthy, and he wants to go out there and ball. And we'll see how he does against one of the most promising corners in the league. Definitely the matchup I'm looking out for. Melvin Gordon, he was terrible, for lack of a better word, last year. Pretty much everyone who drafted him hated themselves for the entire football season, unless they picked up my man Danny Woodhead, who in a PPR league, he never shows up, but he's like, I think he was top 5 last year in PPR for running backs, which, did anyone think about that when they were drafting this year? No, it's Danny Woodhead. There's a video, a little unrelated. There was a video with Danny Woodhead, just to show you how average this guy looks. They put him in a Modell's, wearing the Modell's polo, and he's trying to sell Danny Woodhead jerseys to people. And nobody knows who Danny Woodhead is. Nobody wants to buy his jersey. And he's the one selling it to them. So, not until he pulls out his ID, they're like, oh, yeah, I know you do. Yeah, you played, you had that touchdown. Yeah, so that's Danny Woodhead. He looks like the most average guy on earth. He sells you popcorn at the movie theater, is what Danny Woodhead looks like. Next game on the list after my little story there with that. Next game on the list is Oakland versus New Orleans. Oakland is a lot of people's wild card pick for the AFC. And this is a game that if they want to be that wild card, they have to go out and win. It's on the road in a tough venue in the Superdome. It's loud. You have a young signal caller. I know he's matured a lot, but they have a very good young offense against a defense that has plenty of question marks. They have one of the more overrated linebackers in the NFL in Donnell Ellerbe, but he's out too. So there's really nothing on the back end of that defense. There's probably going to be a lot of running lanes for Latavius Murray, but I also expect Carr to air it out a lot to Michael Crabtree, obviously to Amari Cooper. And I think Seth Roberts is going to have a big game today, their third wide receiver. Drew Brees offenses, Gibbs mentioned earlier, Brandon Cooks he's a must start today. Oakland made a lot of improvements on defense. Okay, Amerson last year had a great year. They re-signed him. They extended him. They brought in Sean Smith, and they spent a very early draft pick on a safety. And they're looking to shore up that back end. And they obviously have one of the best pass rushes in the league with Khalil Mack leading the charge. So got to keep an eye on how much time Drew Brees has to sling it. But at the same time, remember, he's Drew Brees, and he's going to sling it regardless. If they're down early, that start for Cooks looks even better. Moving on from that to New England versus Arizona. This was almost my game of the week, mostly because Tom Brady isn't playing. And this is going to be the first time we see Jimmy Garoppolo out there. He doesn't have Gronkowski, and he doesn't have Nate Solder blocking for him. So that's two huge people that are missing for him. He's facing a very tough defense. Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, Darnell Dockett, Calais Campbell. They're a very good defense. And for your first start in the NFL, not the one I'd want to be making, but this should be a good game. We'll see if Carson Palmer gets out of that train wreck of a playoff game that he's coming off of. See if that has any lasting effects. I don't think it will. He's been around the league for long enough. I think he's enough of a professional where he's not going to have to worry about it. Arizona healthy. The big thing for them. Tyrann Mathieu back. Excellent for them. And, they have a very good young wide receiving core as well. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald takes the average age and puts it way up here, but everything behind him is a bunch of very young, very hungry wide receivers, and we'll see how they match up against New England secondary. Last game I have is the Miami Dolphins versus Seattle Seahawks. I'm a Dolphins fan, and I think we're probably going to get scraped, in all honesty. The first game of the season in Seattle against the 12th man, it's rough. We have a running back, Jay Ajayi, that we left home. He didn't even take the flight with the team. Devontae Parker is out from all sources that I'm saying. Devontae Parker will not play. That will open some more playing time up for Kenny Stills, who's actually looked very good in preseason. He may be back to that receiver that we started to see in New Orleans before he got traded. So he may not be as big of a bust as we thought he was last year. And I expect to see him on a few deep routes, trying to take the top off of the defense, open up underneath for Jay's guy, his start on Jarvis Landry. We'll see. I expect Jarvis to move all over the field. I know Sherman's going to stay on that right side. So we'll have to see how that plans out. Marquise Pouncey is out. Or not Marquise. Mike Pouncey is out. So we have a rookie, Steen, starting at center. So that's another first start that you don't want to have. You look up and you see Seattle's defense, and you're in charge of reading it. So that's – he's looked good in preseason, but I think it's going to be a long day for him. I think it's going to be a long day for Tannehill. I think it's going to be a long day for Arian Foster, that entire offense. The defense, the secondary looks bad. Doug Baldwin may have a very good game today. That's something to keep an eye out for. Thomas Rawls is not starting today. He will be working in off the bench. Christine Michael will start. Now, Michael, every year in the preseason, he's the preseason darling. It's like, oh, man, he looks so good. Usually rolls into the regular season, and, he shits the bed every year. So we'll see if he hangs on to this starting gig, or if it's more of a let's work Rawls back a little more slowly. He's coming off the injury last year. We'll see how that plays out. Those are the last of my games. The other note, Jelani Jenkins, linebacker for Miami, is questionable. I expect to get ran on anyway, so that obviously doesn't help. One of our best linebackers won't be playing, it looks like. After that, I'm going to kick it back over to Jay, and he's going to do which game are you starting out with, Jay?
We might as well start off with my home team. We'll do Green Bay and Jacksonville. Going to be a great game. This isn't the Jacksonville of previous years where you go down to Florida, enjoy your little vacation for the weekend, and walk away with a win. I've been saying actually since a little bit before preseason started, I'm very happy that Green Bay is playing this Jacksonville squad week 1, because I think this is a Jacksonville squad that's going to do very well, but they need to find their identity. So I think the advantage is going to be that we're playing them early. I think by week 7, week 8, they are going to be into a groove, especially with that explosive offense. Blake Bortles is an up-and-coming quarterback. You have the Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns combo. Those guys combined for 24 touchdowns last year between the two of them. Almost 4,000 yards. I mean, it was crazy. Definite up-and-comers. I did get an update while you guys were recapping your games that running back Chris Ivory for Jacksonville is out. He is inactive for today. So TJ Yeldon will be the starter in Jacksonville. And I still think they're fine. I think TJ Yeldon is a very capable running back. Green Bay, obviously, you have Aaron Rodgers, arguably one of the best. Well, he's without a debate one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The debate is where exactly he ranks, but definite edge he's going to bring to any matchup he brings. Big storylines are going to be Jordy Nelson coming back from his ACL injury. That was huge. He stayed out all preseason, but he did work out during the preseason and training camp. He had a full camp. He looked good. Knee looked strong, but you don't know until you're in game action. And you can bet that secondary is going to test him week in and week out, make him earn every yard he gets all season. It starts right away in week 1. You got first round, I believe it's the first round draft pick, Jalen Ramsey. And then you have ex-Packer Devon House. This Jacksonville secondary is really good on paper. Jalen Ramsey, strong enough to take the cornerback 2 position. And, I mean, your third guy is Prince Amukamara, which I'm sure J-Mad has some choice words for Prince. But, you know, he's not that bad to have as your third cornerback. I did have some questions going into the season for Jacksonville's front 7, but they answered that question by signing Malik Jackson in the offseason. And by signing Malik Jackson, they're going to be able to bring a pass rush now. Going to take some pressure off of the rookie and Jalen Ramsey. Though the rookie might have put some extra pressure on himself by calling out Aaron Rodgers in the media earlier this week by saying, you know, he knows who Aaron Rodgers is, but he doesn't care if he's thrown at. So that'll be something interesting to watch. I have Green Bay winning, but it's not going to be a blowout like some people are saying. Definitely going to be an offensive shootout on both sides of the ball. Let's see, who do I have next? Sorry, man. Going through, we'll keep it in the NFC North. We'll have we got Chicago. They're on the road also. They're going to be in Houston, facing off against the Texans. This Chicago team, I'm not sure exactly what is going to be going on there. They still have some questions to answer. Most notably is going to be Jeremy Langford stepping into Matt Forte's shoes as the full-time feature back. Houston has their own question marks too, with Brock Osweiler starting off at quarterback now. They did make some key additions to the wide receiving core, giving him some options to work with, and they made a major upgrade at the running back position by signing Lamar Miller. So definitely excited to watch that matchup as well. I'm going to give the nod to Houston there. We might as well just bang out the whole NFC North. We got Minnesota on the road. They're going to be visiting the Tennessee Titans. And really, the story so far for most of the NFC North's matchups are they're playing teams that used to not be taken very seriously that you're going to have to start taking another look at. Tennessee has made some major upgrades. Marcus Mariota coming into his own as a quarterback, adding DeMarco Murray, drafting Derrick Henry for the running back position, upgrading the offensive line. They got some great, well, maybe not great, but they have some serviceable wide receivers, and then they have definitely upgraded the defense. Definitely going to be fun to watch. And on the other side of the ball, you have Minnesota. Definitely huge defensive upgrades under head coach Mike Zimmer. They just keep getting better on defense, and they're a division rival, but I hate to say it, they're fun to watch on defense. I like good defense, and they have one of the NFL's best. And speaking of the NFL's best, they also have Adrian Peterson. All the quarterback questions after Bridgewater went down, they gave up the farm for Sam Bradford with Philadelphia. He's sitting out to get a better grasp on the offense. Sean Hill will be starting. But I also think, Adrian Peterson's 31. He doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Do I think he hits a wall this year? No, because Adrian Peterson, you can never assume he's going to hit the wall. It's just going to happen one day. We're all going to be shocked by it. We're going to be like, I can't believe it happened to him. He's only 38. But dude's just a machine. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does again this year. They could trip up if they're looking too far ahead. Looking forward to hosting, opening their new doors to Green Bay in week 2. Tennessee could come up and get them. And then finishing out the NFC North, we have the Lions at Indianapolis. And big storyline there is Andrew Luck coming back from injury last year. He was still limited in practice, but he is supposed to be good to go. And then other big storyline is Megatron retiring and how Matt Stafford is going to do without his Hall of Fame wide receiver. They did pick up Marvin Jones from Cincinnati, and then they also picked up Anquan Bolden to help across the bottom. He's 36, but he's a solid wide receiver. They're hoping, I'm guessing, that they get Baltimore Anquan Bolden and not San Francisco Anquan Bolden. But it should be interesting to watch all across the league. Especially, the NFC North matchups are going to be interesting. I do give the edge to Minnesota and Detroit for those matchups as well. And then my last game of the day is going to be Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Atlanta, I don't know what to think. They have a top 3 wide receiver. They have an overrated quarterback. And they have a running back in Devonta Freeman that does well. Their defense, they're supposed to be getting better. It's going to be interesting to see how they do, starting off with a divisional foe right away with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is looking to be one of the up-and-comers in the NFC, trying to challenge Carolina for the NFC South. You got Jameis Winston, who really settled in comfortably as a starting quarterback in the NFL. You got Doug Martin, Mike Evans, another, like you said, with a couple of these teams like Jacksonville and a couple at Oakland. This is another young core team that can shake some things up in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to watch all these matchups. I do give the edge to Tampa Bay today.
All right, and from that, I'm going to move on to the locks of the week. Gibbs, I'm going to let you start out with that. Which team can you lock in as a W?
I'm locking in the Kansas City Chiefs beating the San Diego Chargers.
J-Man, what's your lock? J-Man.
Okay, I thought you asked him why he picked that lock.
No.
I got Seattle going over Miami. Even though Seattle starts slow sometimes, I like that matchup for them.
All right, I've been back and forth between two. Back and forth between Oakland over New Orleans and Houston over Chicago, and I'm sticking with Houston over Chicago. That's my lock. Broncos Modern Life won't have to do much. I'm going to swing into the upsets then. My upset is San Diego over Jay's lock, Kansas City. Gibbs, what's your upset?
My upset pick of the week is going to be, and it's going to get, I can't wait to get the hate mail from Joey Torres. It's going to be the Browns over the Eagles.
Ooh.
Wow. That was one of the ones I was considering.
I think RG3 under Hugh Jackson, like J-Mad brought up, excellent preview, by the way, J-Mad. Everything that you brought up for Cleveland's strengths is why I'm picking them. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games, but I think they're going to come out and kind of smack Philly in the mouth.
I think my preview went over the time limit. Peck would have had to mute me if I continued any longer. I think the upset of the week. I think the upset of the week is you saying Matt Ryan was overrated. I don't know how many Falcons fans we have, but that comment is going to get some angry comments. You know what? Since you took the Browns, which was kind of like my Cinderella one. You know what? I think Jacksonville might be for real, and I know every year there's this like dark horse that everybody falls in love with. The Colts last year, look what they did. I don't know if Jacksonville's gonna like make the playoffs, but they're gonna beat some good teams this year, and this might be the first one.
I can see it.
All right, well, that wraps it up. This was our first episode of Prior to the Snap. We've got about 25 minutes before we start watching the games, everybody. Grab your chips, grab your wings, grab your pizza, grab your beer, and let's kick back and watch some football. Welcome back. Take care, guys.